This is the pie that we are going to create in this lecture. I'm going to show you several techniques here, and I will show you also how to use the trim path without any fill and have really a pie and not a line. We are going also to look at how to add a certain control or controllers. We are starting with controllers now within the course, so you can simplify the way you animate. And later on, you will see that we will animate even without any keyframes. So let's start from here. First of all, I have an outer ring here, a layer that I locked, okay? So I don't move it. This is where I want the pie to be. Then I have the three layers here. This is the null and the 00 and the %, and of course they are not yet linked to anything. So I don't want to see these layers when I'm working. And the best way to hide them from the timeline is to use the shy. Just over here, you notice you have shy, hides layer in the timeline. So I'm gonna shy them, okay? And then come to the composition over here and enable the shy. So you notice that disappeared. So they still exist in the timeline, but I cannot see them. So let's start by creating first our ellipse here. I will select the ellipse, put the stroke, let's say at 5, and then draw the ellipse as much as possible. Press Ctrl and Shift and just make it as big as this. Then Control Home or Command Home to put it in the middle. So I'm gonna increase a bit and change the color so we can see it nicely. Okay, something like this. What we want to create here is a pie and not a line. So it makes sense to have a certain fill. So I'll put the fill on. Here you are. For example. But now, having the fill and adding a trim path will create a problem. Notice how the trim path will work. I will work on the end as usual. It is not working from the center of the fill. It's working very fine if you notice for the stroke itself, but when it comes to the fill, it's gonna start from what we call the first vertex, the upper middle point over here. So it's gonna work from the first vertex, and it's not cool at all. If you want to work with the trim path, you need to remove the fill. But now you need to create a pie. So what makes sense is to increase the size of the stroke. Okay, fine. I put the stroke big. I make the ellipse size here, take it down. Okay, just like this, make the stroke even bigger. Reduce the size, and I can spend a half hour trying to do that. But then when I come to the trim path and I start playing with the trim path, notice what's happening. I have here a piece that really it's appearing because the combination of the stroke, the size, and the trim path. So the best way, if you notice, is to have the stroke equal to the size of the ellipse itself. For example, if I make the stroke 500, for example, and then the size of 500 is going to be very big, but doesn't matter. You notice that the little piece here has been eliminated, it's gone, is no more. So instead of playing all these tricks, the best way is to link the size to the stroke itself. So we have our stroke over here. So the stroke width and the size should be always equal. So you can link this size to the stroke width. Here you are. Fine. And now all you have to do is to adjust the stroke width, and you are having a perfect pie already if you like. I'm going to make it 380. I like this figure. And then change the color just from over here. Reduce it a bit. Okay, make it more yellow so you can see it better. So now I have really my pie, and the trim path, if you notice, is working very fine. Let's create the animation here, but first let's start by making it the background. Here you are. Gonna take it down. So it's gonna be the background. And we want to animate the trim path. I will animate the end. I will keyframe the end, put it at 0 as you know. Come after 20 frames, for example, and put the end at 100%. Okay, this animation we have done a lot, but let's give it some tricks if you like. Come over to the second keyframe and keyframe the offset. And come to the beginning here. And because I'm using the end, I'm gonna make the offset negative. So it starts from a negative value. Okay? So it goes in the opposite direction to the end. So now notice the animation. It's pretty cool. Okay? Just a small trick that I like very much. Of course, you can work on it, you know, do it the way you would like, increase, decrease, make it faster, so on. But this is cool. Now let's take our shape layer here, and of course we want to duplicate it. So this is the background. I'm gonna write just background, and this is our pie. So within the pie here, we press U to remove all the keyframes, of course, right? And then let's change the color. Let's put the color, this gold color, something like this. It's pretty nice, by the way. Okay, fine. So now we want to animate the pie. Of course, you want to go back to the trim path here and start animating the end. Now we have done this all the time, and we are always animating the trim path, and we have to come back if you want to change the value to the trim path. Now here I'm going to show you a method to use controllers. So it's time for you to start learning about controllers, which is very easy to use and very important. So I'm going to create a layer that will hold the controls. And this layer could be, for example, a shape layer, null object, or a solid. The nicest way is to use a null object, okay? Just because it will never render, so you don't have a mistake where it shows. And I'm going to rename it and call it controls. Remember the pie here. We want to animate the trim path, and trim path is a percentage. So we want to animate the trim path of the end, for example, from 0% to 75%. But then we are going to create a control that we are going to put in the controls layer and animate inside the controls layer. So actually, we will only refer to that layer for our animation. To do that, you come to Effects and Preset and type Control. And you have many controls, by the way. This is expression controls. You have 3D point control, color control, and the most used one is the slider control. I'll show you how it works, very easy. So let's drop it on the controls. It will open in the slider control here, and I'm gonna lock this. So whatever layer I select, this is gonna always appear. So now we have a controller here. We can start animating this controller. For example, I'm gonna animate it from 0%, go after 30 frames, for example, and put it at 75. Cool. So actually nothing has happened. I'm gonna change the color of the layer here to make it too obvious. Let's make it seafoam. So you know this is controls. To come to the pie here and link the end to the slider, as simple as this. Now that's what's happening. The animation will start, and then you have the animation that is driven by the slider here. Still, we have to go to the keyframes here to be able to change the value. And in the next lecture, I will show you how to make it even keyframe-less without any keyframes, just playing on time. But actually, this has become a bit easier to work with. I'm gonna select the pie and duplicate it. So I have pie 2, but I want pie 2 to be under pie just for consistency. And pie 2, I'm gonna change the color here to do something nicer. Here you are, something a bit bright. And come to pie and reduce the size of the pie, as simple as this. So notice what you have now. Pie and pie 2 have exactly the same animation, notice? But then you have this border here, which is very nice. Okay, guys? Now, after doing this, I'm gonna give it some colors. I'll show you how it works. I'm gonna right click on it and go to layer styles and give it an outer glow. Actually, we don't want a glow. What we want is a kind of shadow or an outer shadow, if you like. First of all, in the blending mode, I don't want it to blend at all. I'm gonna just put it to normal. And then the color of the glow, I want to change it to black. Something like this. And of course, I can change the opacity. So it gives it a kind of dimension. Notice what's happening now. It turns and then it comes in and you have this very nice line. You can, for example, reduce the size a bit or increase the size the way you would like. You can increase the spread. You need to reduce the size. Okay, something like this. So you make it look marvelous. That's one. The second one, what I want to do is to go back also to the layer styles and apply a gradient overlay. Here you are. Now, the gradient overlay is very easy to use also. Here it is. I will twirl it down. If you play with the opacity, that's what's going to happen. Okay? So it's going to return to the original. So the overlay now is black and white. This is a style that is linear. It will be much better to make it, of course, in our case, radial, but it has a slight problem. Notice what's happening. If you come over here, you know, it's starting from the point over here and it moves on. This is because it's aligned with the layer. So you put it off, here you are, and now notice it's working very nice, but it's giving this kind of, you know, nice look. Of course, you can increase the opacity or decrease it the way you would like. Something like this will do well. Cool, guys. So we've done really a very nice animation here, and you can start linking with the values. So I'll go back and I'll just select everything, clicking outside, press L. Notice how everything is twirled up, and then remove the shy. And I have here the percent which I need to link. What am I gonna link it to? I will turn it down, and in the text here, we have source text. We are going to link it to the slider control. As simple as this. Of course, we're gonna have funny values now, but it's working fine. So let's open the source text, and we all know what to do here. We add math dot round and open brackets, delete this one, go to the end, pressing the end key, close it, and here you are. Okay, so you have now a very nice animation. Of course, you might want to look at the controls keyframes. Still, we are using them, and move the percent or something like this to this side, just like here. So it starts, you know, popping up. Of course, you can animate it if you like with the scale or something like this. Here you are, guys. You created the first pie animation, and this is single pie. Later on, we're going to develop where you are going to create multiple pies, but we're going to use lots of controllers. I urge you to come to this composition, study it, do something, play with the gradient, play with the colors, you know, add some controls, see what you can do, and get very familiar with these kind of techniques, because we are going to add more and more until you are a professional, an expert in creating graphs and charts and infographics.